So if we look at unified messaging itself, and we're going to describe kind of what we believe it is and how it gets implemented, but it's really about access to messages. Easier access, more productive access to all your message types, voice, fax, and email. And not only access to all your message types, but access from the terminal or the device you'd like to use, the most appropriate one. So certainly it's easy to see that sitting at our desks at work, we have an email client, we spend much of our day inside there, and putting a voice and a fax message into that email client makes it much easier to handle. I can now group all my messages based on subject, based on promotions and programs I'm working on, and I can use the same way of working, the same kind of triage of the email inbox to look for important messages to cover all my messages. But it goes beyond that because for some of us, working at a desktop all day long isn't an option. So what we now need to do is extend that same single focus out to other devices for other environments. So you certainly can go out, and when you're out and about, you can grab a web connection. And using web access, you can probably get to your email system. So it would be great if you could get to your voice and fax as you're getting your email messages through a web connection. Perhaps you have a mobile device, a BlackBerry device, and you're handling your email through that when you're mobile. Once again, having all your message types on any device you're using is really what the goal is for this. We want to reduce the time to process messages, but we also want to extend the time that messages are available and reduce the amount of time it takes you to get a message, read it, process it, and respond to it. There's actually a study out that talks about message management with unified messaging when we're able to take all our message types and put them into a single tool. That saves anywhere from 50 to 75% of the time we spend handling messages. Now, if you think about time at a desk where you would actually be in your email, reading your email, the light would come on your phone, you'd stop, you'd call in, you'd log into your voicemail, you'd then basically listen to those messages, and then you'd get up and go out to wherever your fax machine was and get your fax messages. Then you'd come back with all that information and sort of try and tie it together by subject. It's pretty easy to see how looking at it all on one screen, having it in one simple place to manage, will allow you to be more productive and more responsive because you'll know about all those messages in a much more timely manner. And that same concept actually is magnified when you go mobile. If you imagine out at lunch, you've just finished lunch and now you're worrying about a couple of projects you're working at, and now you have to go somewhere to get your email, and you have to call in to listen to your voicemail, and then maybe transfer out to an administrator to ask if you have fax messages. To have all those pushed real time to your mobile device, much, much more productive for you. And that response time gets greatly reduced. All those functionalities are part of unified messaging. But behind that, and not quite as visible, is the architecture you're going to use to deliver that. Unified messaging is one of those solutions that connects key elements in your infrastructure. It connects your phone messages with your email system, with your faxes, with your network, with your groupware. And those connections all need to be built in such a manner that not only do they deliver the functionality you want, but they also match certain corporate directives. And we're going to look at those when we talk about how to connect unified messaging. Certainly the interoperability with the email system is the first and key piece, and we've been doing that for a long time now, and we're completely comfortable with any type of email you have. We can give you unified messaging. Now the feature mix varies a little bit from email to email, but not noticeably. The functionality is going to be there no matter what email system you have once you take the time to roll it out. We can support up to 10,000 users using unified messaging on a single call express system today, and that number actually doubles in our next software release. So I'm guessing no matter what your enterprise is structured like, Call Express is going to fit your needs to be looking at getting that value from unified messaging. The industry's all excited about unified messaging in the last few years. Now, mind you, we shipped our first unified messaging product in 1991, and it was fairly slow going in the early days to convince people of the value of unified messaging. It was early in the early days of LANs and of email systems, and there were a lot of challenges. But slowly over the years, as we started rolling this out for more and more customers, we've learned from those customers what types of features they have, what types of connectivity they want to have. And the market's got more and more interesting, and in the last few years, it's absolutely blossomed. Right now, the studies talk about 75% of the enterprises plan to roll out between now and 2010. And frankly, that's purchasing decisions you're evaluating today. We're talking about the market doubling in size, and that's a pretty good step. To be in a market that's doubling in size is a good place to be. And as we look at the deployment of IP technologies, which is another area of the technology that's really getting a lot of focus right now, we need to kind of do two things. First, we need to focus on the fact that this unified messaging functionality works fine with the new IP technology. But we also need to keep in mind that the unified messaging functionality isn't tied to IP. The same functionality we're talking about today will work fine on a new IP phone system or on your legacy phone system. In fact, you can purchase unified messaging today with the system you have, knowing full well you can go to any IP phone system and not lose a bit of the functionality that Call Express provides today. So in an environment where you have a number of solutions you're looking at, focusing on the unified messaging one today and leaving the IP one for tomorrow is something that works very, very well. So as we talk about unified messaging itself, most of you have probably seen the famous screenshots and the demos of what goes on. And the concept's simple. We're going to put all our message types into one tool, the appropriate tool for wherever you happen to be. Now this is showing you the email tool. It just happens to be a Microsoft Outlook screenshot. It could just as easily be Notes or Eudora or Novell GroupWise or any client you really want to talk about. And inside that inbox, what you see is voice messages, designated by the little telephone icon, fax messages by the little piece of paper, and regular email messages. And these are literally all processed in the same way. Not much of a learning curve for desktop unified messaging. You open up your inbox, you see a new message, you double-click it, that'll bring the message up, and we'll talk about playing that message in a second. But you notice even in the header lines, there's information about who sent you those messages, what type of messages they are. All of that's visual, and that aids in that triage of your mailbox that we all do as we kind of process work during the day. As we look at unified messaging, we're not going to focus that much on functionality. Functionality is probably within 10% the same in many of the competing products today. That's because we've been doing it all long enough to have kind of figured out what it is the customer wants. What we're going to spend a little more time on than functionality is the architecture used to deploy it. The architecture is kind of behind the scenes and it doesn't get much attention, but it turns out it's a fairly critical piece in your deployment of unified messaging. As you start putting new solutions into the enterprise, more and more of these solutions communicate with other solutions in your enterprise. And how they do that can be critical. So what we're going to look at with Call Express is its ability to do all the types of unified messaging architecture. We can mix any type of unified messaging architecture that exists on a single Call Express. We can have pure voicemail users and unified messaging users. Not all customers really need to convert everyone to unified messaging, and some systems require that. And not only is that a hassle, but it's also a licensing cost that you really don't want to incur if you're not getting any value for it. And then we'll take a look at the flexibility of getting unified messaging from the different devices. Call Express actually allows you to have a user who's fully unified at his email client, but when they call in over the phone, they just get voicemail. Or someone, when they call in over the phone, they get voicemail, fax, and email, but at the desktop, their email client's just an email client. The complete flexibility to tailor it not only per system, but per user. And then we're going to look at the various environments. We fit today with any email system, any phone system, any network architecture. We're completely flexible. We don't care if you have a single domain or multiple domains or an old phone system or a new phone system. Call Express is going to go in and leverage that existing investment, and you're going to be able to start getting the value of unified messaging. When the time comes to change any of these, though you can rest assured we support any email system changes you might make, any new phone system you might buy, and any network architecture. Perhaps you're going to acquire another company and suddenly you'll have two domains instead of one. That's not going to be a challenge for your unified messaging solution as long as it's from AVST. So let's take a look at these architectures. And these are simply different ways to connect your voicemail system, your telephone system, and your email system to deliver unified messaging functionality. There's really 4 ways it's done out in the market in general. This nice brochure our marketing department did up last year kind of talks about the 4 basic ways. We're going to look at each one of these so you understand them, and then we're going to talk about kind of what the implications are of doing one of these as opposed to the other.